Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno and welcome to episode 11 of the Sparky Game Engine series. Now, last time we had an optimization episode and I don't know, it was supposed to be a maintenance episode, we didn't really maintain too many things, but we did talk a lot about profiling, so now we are in a better kind of situation in which we're running it, oh lol, it's rotating, but anyway, we're running very quickly, so if I stop this crazy rotation that we had last time, that was just to make sure, because we fixed matrix rotation. So that was really just there to make sure that everything was rotating properly. Because we had a bug in multiplication. But you can see how fast it's running. So it used to be running, we did an optimization, it used to run at 700 frames per second. This is 57,600 sprites, by the way, keep in mind. We had an optimization, we did an optimization in which it was, it used to be 700 frames per second, then we changed colors in our OpenGL buffers to be unsigned ints instead of vec4s, and it has increased our performance by 200 frames per second. So it was a good episode. You guys should totally watch that if you haven't already. Anyway, this episode is going to be a bit different. Well, I guess we're back on the development wagon, I should say, but also we're going to be talking about the next 5 episodes. So I told you every 5 episodes we would be having like a planning session. I didn't do it last episode because it was... I don't really count the optimization episode. So every 10th episode, so episode 10, 20, 30, 40, etc., isn't really counted as an episode because we don't add new features. So every 5 real episodes is when we'll have the planning. So this is one of the real episodes. So let's open up Mischief, which is just a cool little drawing program. And we're going to plan out, sorry if my face is overexposed, it does that when there's a white thing in front of me, but, when there's a white light in front of me, but, we're going to talk about planning out the next 5 episodes. So, by the way, this is totally live. I don't know what I'm going to be doing the next 5 episodes. I have a rough idea, clearly, but I haven't planned this out anywhere else before, not even on stream, so... Hope you guys are enjoying every minute of development on this. So, episode 10 is what we did last time. Episode 11 is this episode. Let's talk about what we need to do. In fact, I'm not going to plan it out that way. I'm just going to say next 5 episodes. Okay, so the next 5 episodes are as follows. This episode, we're going to be basically talking about layers and groups. And I'm going to try and write a little bit neater. Layers and groups. So what I mean by this is a layer. Okay, we'll talk about that when we actually start this episode, not the planning session. So layers and groups. So this will be episode 11. 12, I think we'll probably episode 12. I had something I wanted to talk about in episode 12. There was something important. I remember I wanted to do textures. I think there was something I wanted to do before textures though. Oh yes, transformation stack. Okay, so basically we want to be able to transform objects or sprites and whatnot in groups, basically based on a transformation stack which will be maintained by the renderer. So basically the idea is, let's just say we want to be like, we're submitting 5 sprites. Cool. Have them just be wherever their vertices say they are. So basically no rotation, nothing, yeah? Have a bunch of sprites there. Good. It gets submitted to the renderer. It gets multiplied by the identity matrix or whatever matrix is in the stack, and we're all good. Now, the next 5 sprites, I might be like, you know what? I want to push, just like you would use in kind of, I guess the OpenGL with push stack and pop stack, you'd be like, I want to push a matrix into it, okay, and then I want to submit 5 sprites, which would mean the next 5 sprites would have, I don't know why this is R, but I really don't know why I made it R, but R times M, right, so it would times it by that, and then I can pop off that matrix and whatever, and then the next 5 sprites after that would be back to identity, for example, yeah, so we have this stack that we can kind of control things via, right, anyway, that's what the transformation stack is. We'll talk more in depth about that when we actually hit episode 12, which is the next episode. 13 will be textures. So we need to implement textures. This might be a double episode because the first thing we'll need to do is probably compile some kind of library. I haven't decided what I'm going to use. It looks like I probably will be using something called free image because it seems one of the most straightforward libraries I've actually come across. So we might actually do that. In that case, it'll just be 1 episode, I think. If we do something like libpng or something like PNG++. For A, that'll only give us PNG support, but also it means we'll probably have to compile it ourselves, which will probably be an entire episode in itself because it'll take a while. Anyway, so assuming we do use free image, 14 will be probably the inevitable font rendering episode. So that will... that'll probably take 2 episodes, I imagine, just because it's not easy at all. So the first episode will probably be stuff like loading glyphs as textures. So because we'll be using something called free type for that. Okay, so the first kind of thing will be about glyphs, and then the next episode will probably be more about how to actually, handle strings and caching and stuff so that we're not running slowly and so that it's well optimized. Okay. That's the next 5 episodes. After that, we'll probably move on to more broader kind of engine features. I definitely want to move on to some kind of, just in terms of a long-term plan now, I want to move on to some kind of 2D particle engine before Laudem Dare, if we have time, just because particles are a great and relatively easy way to make a game look more impressive, and I'm all about that. So there's that. We also probably want to... We definitely need audio in our game before Laudem Dare. That's a higher priority feature than a particle engine, of course. So we might actually do this first and then that. We need to do some kind of state machine and maybe menus, which would be good to do before Laudem Dare as well. There's a lot of work to do, basically, is what I'm getting at. Yeah. I don't really know. I think that's pretty much all I really wanted to say in terms of the planning of more stuff. So that's the plan. Hope you all enjoy that. And let's begin now with layers and groups. So nope. So layers and groups. Let's talk about that. What is a layer? Well, a layer is... Think of it almost like a renderer, but higher abstracted. Okay, so a layer is basically something that contains renderables. So it has renderables. It has a projection matrix. And usually that's... it can have its own shader as well. So usually it would have a shader. Okay? That's probably about it. So what I mean is the usage of this would be you'd make a layer. So this is something that would be basically a superclass the same way that renderer 2D is, right? It's not actually, you don't actually. So you might make something like a UI layer. Okay? So a UI layer, for example, would have the renderables would be like 2D sprites or components. You don't have to call them sprites, whatever. 2D sprites, right? With in some kind of interface design. Projection matrix would be some kind of orthographic matrix, and then a shader will be some kind of UI shader or something. Okay, that will have maybe it'll support text rendering. You might have a special font shader as well, and everything is great. So that's an example of a UI layer. Whereas on the other side, you might have something called a scene layer, for example, which will be, say, for 3D, it'll be it'll have a bunch of models. I don't really want to call them there, but a bunch of 3D renderables is what I'm saying. It'll have a perspective matrix, and it'll have some kind of shader which actually does stuff like lighting calculations and all the good stuff. Okay, so that's the idea, right? That's why we have layers, because we want to have basically... It stems from wanting to have multiple types of projection matrices, okay, in our game. So we want to have one that's an orthographic matrix so that we can render text onto the screen, for example, yeah, and other debug information. Or not just that, but actual in-game stuff, like, for example, our current score, just a HUD, right, like a heads-up display, all of that stuff. But we also want to have our 3D scene and whatnot. And an example might be our fonts want to use a different orthographic matrix and a different shader than our actual 2D game, for example, if we were doing it in 2D, yeah? That's why we have layers. Groups are a bit different. Groups actually are a renderable. Yeah. But what they have is a vector full of other renderables. Okay? that's what they have. And excuse the terrible handwriting, I'm kind of in a rush. And also I'm using this very, very old tablet that is not very comfortable to write on. Anyway, the point is they have an array of renderables. And then what happens is you submit the group as a renderable into, say, a layer, and the layer will basically iterate through all of these, okay? So it's something like that. So we'll implement this today, and hopefully it'll just be the best. So let's quickly move on. So under graphics, I'm actually just going to make a new folder called layers, because I think, and groups will be in there as well. So we'll make a new item called layer. This will be our superclass, and then we'll have a CPP file as well called layer. All right, great. Almost sounds like Leia from like Star Wars. As I was saying that, I was thinking about that. I was like, whoa. Okay, so we'll include layer in the CPP file, and then over here we'll pragma wants that. Namespace Sparky. Namespace graphics. Okay. All right, so class layer. What is this going to have? Well, it's protected. Again, what it needs to have. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it will have its own renderer as well, which is important. So it, out of the stuff we actually need, we need a renderable and a renderer, some kind of. So right now we've got 2D stuff. We'll probably make just a broad class that is like 3D and everything in the future as well. But for now we've only got this. Okay, cool. So again, since we've only got 2D, we'll just use 2D for now. All right, so it has a renderer, 2D. Renderer, okay. Yeah, I mean, it'll probably, we'll go ahead and make it on the heap. It needs to have some kind of like data structure full of like renderables. So there'll be pointers as well. I'll make them, so we'll call this, I should call this mRenderer. In fact, yeah. We'll call this objects. So I'll call this objects. In fact, we'll be nice and we'll call them renderables. Objects is just shorter. I kind of was considering that. And we need to have a shader. And we need to have usually layers would have cameras as well, for example, but we don't have cameras yet and we're not really dealing with that yet. So we'll just have so we won't have like a view matrix, but we will have a mat for a projection matrix. So I'll call this M projection matrix. All right, cool. So that's looking pretty good to me. In terms of public, we need to have a constructor. Again, we really don't need to even take anything in. We need to have a virtual destructor, of course. And okay, so this is where it becomes different. We want to have a virtual void add, okay, which, well, we'll implement here, but basically takes in a renderable and it adds it. So renderable 2D renderable m renderables dot add. All right. We have to decide, and by that I mean pushback. We have to decide whether or not we actually want to have this now take control of all the objects. I mean, you don't have to, but you certainly can. So, like, the destructor here would have to do a few things, by the way. It would have to delete. I made an implementation class, didn't I? I might as well just use that then. I thought I hadn't. So layer, and then that was, yeah. All right. Okay, so this needs to delete shader. What? Oh, finding it hard to stick to my own convention. Renderer. And yeah, we'll go ahead and say that for each of these renderables, we'll go ahead and just delete them. Okay, so in other words, if you give a layer a renderable, much like if you give a vertex array, a vertex array a buffer, it will, and I mean our vertex array, not OpenGL's vertex array, you basically surrender control of that renderable to this. So you can't add it anywhere else, because if the layer does get destroyed, it destroys all of its renderable. So you basically transfer control onto this. So it's an important design decision that I've made right now. So, okay. I mean, yeah, so the next thing we have is something like draw or render. I'll just call it, do we want to call it draw or render? Stream, what do you think? I'll ask the stream and we'll see what they say. I've written draw here and render there. I think we'll call it render. Render sounds more formal. All right. Let's see. So we want to enable the shader. Yeah, everyone in the stream, by the way, is saying render, so we're calling it. Good thing I made a good decision. So we're enabling the shader. We're disabling shader. Remember, we need to set the uniform for the shader to be. I mean, we probably don't really need to set the projection matrix every time. We can probably just set it once, assuming no one touches the current shader's projection matrix. In fact, yeah, we'll do that. So inside here, you probably need to specify a shader and a renderer, by the way. We'll do that in a minute. We'll just assume that it won't change, because that's one less uniform call, which is good for performance. So projection matrix. We'll keep the matrix around though, in case, like, if we decide to have like set projection matrix, then yes, it will fix that up. So we'll set the projection matrix. Again, this is a default kind of constructor thing. It's not something that you'll probably use too much. In fact, we need to change this right now. So this is going to be, so we'll have a protected constructor. Okay, so I'll have I'm just going to write it like this. We'll have a protected constructor which takes in everything. So a renderer 2D, a renderer, a shader, and a projection matrix. So okay, and then you can just use that yourself if you want to set it like this, and that's what this will do. So M projection matrix is going to equal M projection matrix. Renderer is going to equal renderer. And shader is going to equal shader. Alright, cool. So we've got everything being nicely set up now. And then it will set, it'll also set up the shader properly, and I think that's probably about it, right? So then in render, this becomes a bit of a different task now, because we don't have to do that thing again. So in render, we'll just go ahead and say, again, we would do our cameras setting uniform stuff here, but we don't have that, so we're not doing that. So really all we need to do is access the renderer and tell it to render whatever is in here. So for each of, so for every renderable, we can make this const, for each renderable in mRenderables, we'll go ahead and say mRenderer.submit why are you not showing up? What have I done? That looks fine. We will just ignore it, I guess. mRenderer.submit renderable. Have I misspelled that or something? That's so weird. No, I haven't. Oh, whoops. Lol. Okay, yes, the stream is like, needs more arrows. Okay, so we'll submit all that stuff, and then once we've done all that, we can just flush it. I'm just used to having a program called Visual Assist. Sorry, I forgot the name for a second. I'm used to having a program called Visual Assist, which if you basically use a pointer such as renderer and then you hit dot, it converts it into an arrow for you. So in other words, I'll probably download Visual Assist for next episode, but yeah, it's not free. That's why I'm kind of avoiding using it. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's pretty much the end of things. That's, yeah, and the thing is, it's that simple, right? It's not really difficult or anything. That's all that we really need to do, okay? Cool. So anyway, now that we've got this brilliant class here that is totally legit, we can probably, so we've, again, this is almost like a default thing. Again, we need to kind of populate it better and whatnot, so I think we'll probably not have, you shouldn't be able to create a renderer just like that, right? You should be able to, you shouldn't be able to create a layer just like that. Where's my insert button? Here it is. That's not it. Here it is. You shouldn't be able to create a layer just like that. You have to create some kind of implementation of layer. So let's actually implement a layer class now. So we'll call this, oh man. Like scene layer or something. That sounds very 3D though. Level layer, or like, I'll call it tile layer for now. This will just be like an example of a layer that will just exist. So header file. I'll copy most of this stuff. Except, of course, we just need to include layer. Tile layer. Okay, cool. So, no more of, well, we don't need any of this, clearly, but gone. Okay, so a tile layer will basically just take in, it could potentially have its own shader, I think. Like, I guess we should specify a renderer. It could just create everything by itself. That wouldn't be very game engine-y though. This looks more of an implementation. So I guess you still should specify. It'll have its own renderer. I guess you just should specify a shader. So for now, like we're doing this stuff for now anyway. Like it'll probably be different eventually. We'll have a destructor. Don't think we really need one to be honest. But we'll have add will not change and render. I don't even think render will change. Like we've done a pretty good job at implementing as much as we can in the superclass here. So, hit that real quick. Goodbye, most of you. We'll keep the destructor. I don't think we need, yeah, we don't need a destructor right now, but again, I just figured I'd pop it in there, why not? Shader, no. I mean, everything, shader can stay, everything else can die. So we'll still need to fill out everything else that's in actual layer. We'll do that in a minute. So, let's see. We don't need this though. Yeah, this is quite simple, which is good. It's good. So, now that we've got a tile layer, okay, now that we've got a tile layer, yeah, well, first of all, let's make sure that it's a subclass of layer. Secondly, we need to fill out everything. So here's what we'll do. What's the first parameter? A renderer. So we'll create a new, what do you think? A new batch renderer, clearly. We're not going to use some kind of inferior renderer when we've got something as awesome as this batch renderer. So include, where is it? Batch renderer 2D. It's so good that it's in capitals, the file name. What does that need? Oh, nothing. Great. We'll take in a shader. So the shader we'll take in as our shader, and then we'll create a create our own projection matrix. So just for now, we'll keep an orthographic. No, we won't. We'll go. Oh, well, I guess we are trying to do 2D. Oh, I got you guys excited for a second, didn't I? Yeah, I'll just do this. Yeah, whatever. We'll probably change this to be more or less the width and height. I don't know, something. Okay. No, that's it. That's it. No, it's not. Alright, there we go. So we've done everything now. I don't think we actually need to do anything else. That's how great this thing is. So we've got a layer now. So really what we should be doing is, back in main, we're going to clean this up a lot now. Finally, I hated this. It's like 100 lines of code of just nothing useful at all. And if you want, of course, you can just go back and look at the other ones. So it's totally good. Let's delete almost everything. Except our shader. Like, honestly. By the way, if you give a shader to a layer, it takes it from you. That's something I should have mentioned. But, oh, should we make it do that? Maybe not, actually. Okay, so I'm just deleting everything. We'll keep the light position and stuff, though. That was kind of cool. And we'll keep our timer, obviously. Yes, the get mouse position we'll keep. Batch renderer, we don't need that. Oh, we need to start and stop our renderer. Yes, I forgot that. I don't know how we're going to do that, actually, but because it's just a normal renderer. We'll have begin and end in the... We'll add it, I think. Most renderers will have something like that anyway. We don't need this or that. And that's it. So this is much better looking now. It's much shorter and it doesn't look crap. So, back over here. First of all, since we want to use begin and end and we don't have access to that stuff in renderer 2D, I'm just going to add a virtual void begin. Like, this will be something that you don't have to implement necessarily. Begin and end. It'll just be something that you can override if you like. So, in other words, I bet I should probably go to, just for, you don't have to do this, but just since we're trying to be all cool and convention-y, we'll use override. Okay. And as I said, you don't have to do that. It's totally up to you. Alright. So, let's quickly go ahead and check out this in action now. So, I guess I'll probably say something like delete shader down here. So I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe layers shouldn't delete the shader, since the shader is something that you specify outside Like, I just imagined that maybe you would want to give the same shader to multiple layers. That is possible. But then, no, it's not, because you're setting your orthographic matrix, and it's being set to the current shader, so you need to have unique shaders for each. You need to have unique shaders for each layer. So I'm not going to do that. All right. So shader, we can do whatever we want here. It doesn't really matter at all. Okay, let's go ahead and create our layer right here. So layer. Or in fact, we'll just go ahead and say, we'll just go straight to the point because we're creating a tile layer. So include source, graphics, layers, tile layer. So tile layer, now we do need to specify just a shader, I believe. So we'll just pass in the shader with an ampersand like that. Because it's taking a pointer, whatever. All good. And then we'll go ahead, and we don't have to do anything, remember. We can add stuff to it. So layer.add, let's say a new sprite. So 0, 0, 4, 4. So that should be in the middle. Again, I'll make it to like 2, 2. And the color will just be, say, I don't know. We'll just make it like pinkish. How about that? Not full pink though. Something pleasant. How about that? Something pleasant. And I should probably take that turkey off. Oh, every episode of Sparky, there's just mention of a turkey. I gotta stop that. So layer.okay, good, we've done that. Yes, so now all we do need to call is layer.render, and I think we should be good. So we'll see. We should get some pink thing on the screen. Oh, or that. Yes, so we need to make sure that we begin and end our batch renderer in the layer. Where are we? Where's layer? Tile layer. Tile layer.c. No, sorry, in just normal layer. Where is layer? Here it is. So mrenderer.begin. I should probably make some kind of custom error message that says that nothing started it, just because I imagine it'll be much easier to probably debug. Yes, I should rename the engine from Sparky to Turkey, as people are suggesting in the comments in the chat. Anyway, that looks pretty good, except for that error. 1282, which means invalid operation. So probably something to do with... I actually don't know. We took away something that probably did that. Now our mouse stuff isn't working. Shader.set uniform to F. Oh, the shader wouldn't be enabled. Yeah, that's a problem. I think we'll go back into layer and we'll say, you know what, don't disable the shader. Okay, there we go. So the mouse totally isn't relative to where it should be, because it's not multiplying. It's not multiplying with the projection matrix. If we go into the shader, we could probably fix that up though. Oh well, yeah. The problem is we're doing all this code and it relied on it being 0 to whatever. So yeah, we could go ahead and say times 32 minus 16. And that should work. Or not. Wait, it did work, just not for Y. Because we're doing that here. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Oh, still wrong. X is fine though, so clearly... Oh, because it's, Oh, I forgot the F, please don't kill me. There we go. Alright, cool. So, good. Let's give it, what's the performance like? Very fast. Let's give it way more than that. So if we go into open containing folder for main. If we just go ahead and this is the beauty of version control, let's diff it. We can get our old code back. So we got rid of this sprites thing. Unfortunately, it's got so many macros around it, but that's all right. So we'll go ahead and put it here. We'll get rid of these lines that say stuff like static sprite. And instead of sprites.pushback, it's layer.add. Now it also will increase this to 1, this to 9 or something, because this now goes from negative 9 to 16. Oh, no, from negative 16 to 16. Yeah. Let's look at this. See if we can handle it. Good. What's the performance? Totally the same as it was before, pretty much. Okay, cool. So we've now got layers, and the cool thing is, if I wanted a different layer with, say I'm like, you know what, I want another layer with a different projection. Unfortunately, we've just made tile layer, which has the same freaking projection. But I could be like, I want another layer with the same shader. That's not going to fly. So we'll just have to create a new shader. But it can be the same, obviously, but it just needs to be a different object. We can, I don't know, I guess we should probably set light position and everything. Wait, but this doesn't, how, what? That doesn't happen, right? Because the shader's not even enabled. Oh, was it before? Did I get rid of it? Yeah, I did. I was gonna say, how is that working? This is a bit annoying having to do the same thing twice, I know, but if we go ahead and say this is our new layer, layer 2. So, and then layer 2 dot add like one sprite, which is pretty big. We'll add it at -2, -2, and it'll be 4, 4, and it will be, I really want to be able to take in an integer color, by the way. We'll do that eventually. It'll be like just normal pink. Screw it. Oh, yeah, because it'll get shaded anyway, which is nice. And then we can just go ahead and render layer 2. You can see that we've got two independent things, right? And also the shader is not being set. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Something's wrong. Shader set uniform light position. Layer dot add layer 2 dot add shader 2. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, this is odd. It seems like it's only happening for the top layer. Okay, so something's wrong. This shouldn't be happening. So it's time to debug this now. Okay, so that's working. So it looks like, oh my goodness. But they're different. Why is it's basically what's happening apparently is they're taking in the same shader. But they're not. They're two different objects. What? That's so weird. I'm quite confused. Hang on, what's going on here? So we enable the shader, we begin rendering, we flush, we end rendering, yep, okay. So, wait, what? Oh. Yeah, yeah. Whoops. Alright. That's, yeah. There we go. Now the light works on both. But as you can see, they're two totally separate things. So I could, again, since they're separate things, I could, like, for example, set this light to be at, like 2, for example. And that was bad. I forgot that it was -8, -3. So you can see one light's there and the other one light is for my mouse. But the point is they're two completely separate layers, okay? So that's now working, which is fantastic. And then we can have certain layers for, like, you might have like a debug layer, which is actually like the projection matrix will be set up so that you have, for example, 0, 0 at the top left, and then your bottom right will be width, height, or something like that. So that's pretty cool. Now, we're not actually going to do groups in this episode, and the reason I've decided not to do that is because we don't really have a transformation stack anyway, so it's not... I think we might do it in the transformation stack episode, or we might have an episode after that, which will cover that, okay? But other than that, that is... okay, actually, you know what? There was one other thing. When I closed this, it crashed. That's interesting. So is it deleting it twice? But it shouldn't be. See, that's what was weird. Let's fix this. Let's just put a breakpoint here. So layer 2's shader is... Oh my goodness. Random release mode. So layer 2's shader is layer 2's shader is 54F35C. That's different. Okay, good. So I'm deleting stuff off the stack, yeah. Is it really getting mad at that though? Why is it getting mad at that? It's alright. So shaders need to be created on the heap. I don't really want to create... I don't really want to... I don't really want to... rename everything, so I'm just going to be lazy and do that. But that should fix it. Wow. It sure took a while to delete all those objects. Look at that. That's deleting 57,000 sprites. Wow, that is quick. I mean, slow. I don't know why I said quick. Okay, anyway, that's going to wrap this up. Yeah, so don't delete stuff off the stack, obviously. If you allocate stuff on the stack, it manages memory automatically. Don't delete it explicitly. That is not something you do. Okay, anyway, any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll see you guys next episode when we talk about the transformation stack. Goodbye. Vroom.